done anything new or different for yourself?
My lawyer said to me, all these years, you've never, and I was alone 17 years before I remarried. He said, you've got to do something for yourself. And I said, really? He said, yes. You have shopped in Goodwill long enough. He said, it's time you did something for yourself. And he said it just that way. I said, what do you want me to do? He said, take a family out and do something. And I did. We all went on a cruise last year. I took all of us.
Who'd you
A
take?
very expensive cruise.
Who'd you take? Names?
And let me see, I don't know, $10,000, $11,000. And we had a wonderful time. And Donna has the picture here somewhere.
Who went with you on the cruise?
Oh, my 2 grandchildren, my daughter, her husband, Vern, my daughter Donna, her husband Vern, my daughter-in-law Susan, who is widowed and has been for over 3 years, and her mother, who is 85 and who is my best friend. We have been friends from the day that the kids got married. Oh, that's a funny story. My son, who had too many women and too many girls in his life from the day that he went to school, was jogging on the beach in Hollywood on a Sunday morning. He owned a store. He was an entrepreneur. He sold comic books and baseball cards. And he had a store he had 2 stores, one in South Miami, one in North Miami. Tropic Comics, they were called. He still was known all over. And he was jogging, he was jogging on a Sunday morning early, and he bumped into this girl who was walking on the beach. She came from California. She was visiting her grandmother, who was retired and who lived on a condo on the beach. And she hadn't seen her bubby in several years. And so she came and spent her vacation. She was single. They were both single. They were in their 30s. He bumped into her. And they had a 2-second conversation and walked along with each other. And to make the very long story short, they were married 8 months later. Unbelievable story, but it really worked. They were married 17, 18 years, I think, before he died, the 2 children. But they met on Hollywood Beach. She moved from California. He went to California first to visit her. And I took care of the store. I took care of his dog. And I took care of the store. And he came back. And a couple of weeks or a couple of months happened. He went back out to California again. And I said, go over and move already. I said, close the store, go move to California. And whatever happened, didn't want to go into it. But she ended up moving here. And they got married. They met during the summer. They were married the following summer. And they were married 17 years till he died. And they decided to leave this area. It wasn't as profitable as they thought. Both, they had 2 children. They had a darling little girl named Casey and a little boy named Simon. And they went on vacation for a couple of days to North Carolina to check out the mountains and the view and what have you. And came back and said, we're moving. And I said, please don't move. And I begged, don't move. Her mother said, don't move. But they picked up and they moved to North Carolina and set up a new life for themselves. Where my granddaughter, my daughter-in-law is still there. They're outside of Charlotte. And I help them financially. It's a tough life. But I took them all on a cruise. And every once in a while, in fact, I just spoke to my grandson for Thanksgiving, and he said, Bubby, isn't it cruise time? I said, not for $10,000, not until you go out and get a job. This one costs $10,000. And knowing my age, I think it's time I took them again. I think I will. Maybe not all of them or something, but it's time to do something that, as you grow older, life becomes very fragile. And the things that you would like to do, you're no longer able to do. I can't walk, I can't run, I've had major surgery, I use a walker. I'm feeling like a little old lady half of the time of my life. And I am a little old lady. I may not be what some of the other women are that I'm in a retirement home, and as a social worker, I know where I am and what I'm doing. And I'm probably the only one who actually knows about it. But life goes on.
What were some of your lessons learned in life?
And I would like to have left my children with the knowledge that coming from, we didn't consider ourselves poor. We always had food to eat. Somehow my mother could make a meal out of I don't know what. My mother was a seamstress. She always had work to do at home. And if I hadn't gone to college, they put a needle in my hands and taught me how to sew. I would have been a seamstress working in a factory somewhere too. My father was a tailor, an excellent tailor, who opened a tailoring store, and with a name like Deutsch in a German neighborhood, we became quite prosperous and were able to go on to other things. I often think about where it was that I grew up. I grew up in this third floor walk-up tenement, and we lived on the fourth floor when I was born. And I remember my mother saying, we moved to the third floor when I was 3 years old. And Mama used to say, why didn't we move to the second floor? Because that was $5, or more, so you couldn't afford that. But I always remember that story. We went from one floor to another floor, and Mom, and to the day my mother died, they were still living on East 89th Street on the third floor. And my mother was still hoping someday she would move to the second floor, and they never did. I lived in a house. People didn't have houses. I had never known anybody that had a house. And I will tell you, as I told my grandchildren, and they think I'm off the walls, I had never been in a private car. I had never been in a car until I was married and I came down to Florida on my honeymoon. You weren't in a car, Bubby? What did you drive in? Nobody had a car. I was on a subway. I was on a bus. I was in a taxi cab. But nobody I ever knew had a car. My friends' parents didn't have cars. My father's brothers and sisters, nobody had a car. You rode the L and you rode the bus to get to the Bronx, but you didn't have a car. And I came to South Florida, and I was with my in-laws, and they had a car. I thought they were millionaires. I found out later they didn't, and they weren't. But nobody had cars. You didn't. This is where you lived on subways and buses, and maybe you rode a taxi once in a while. What has car? Now we have a 16-year-old, he wants his own car. When my son died, my granddaughter, who was 16, got her father's car. Everybody drives. Everybody drove. Oh, I didn't tell you that I never grew up. I grew up without a telephone. Bubby, you grew up without a what? And they all take out their telephones, put them on the table. I said, no telephone. I said, I can't show you what it looks like, but I'm sure we can find a picture somewhere of what my first telephone was like. And I didn't get a telephone until I was a teenager. No telephone. My father had a telephone in the store. So if my sister had a date, and she was almost 7 years older than I was, and she was dating, of course, the boyfriend would have to call my father's store, and no, she couldn't very well run the 3 blocks to go get to the telephone, but somehow she would find out that the boyfriend had called. I didn't get that telephone until many years later. Try to explain that to children.
Tell me more about that.
When I took them out to dinner, at one point when I was up in North Carolina, first thing I said was, put the phones away. And the 19-year-old, who was 18 at that time, looked up at me and said, excuse me? Kid said to me, excuse me? I said, yes, excuse me. I said, take the phone and put the phone away. She said, I can't do that, Bubby. I said, then don't come to dinner. I said, there's the door. I said, you can go outside of the restaurant, and you're more than welcome to go eat on the street, but pay your own way. They eat dinner with me, those phones are away. I don't even have to say it anymore. I want to hear you talk. I want to know what you're doing. I want to know nonsense. Tell me. You got a boyfriend, you got a girlfriend, your hair's going to be green, it's going to be yellow, what are you going to wear? I don't care. I just want to talk to you. I don't see children. I see little old ladies like me and little old men like me. I want to know what somebody else's life is like. When I was teaching or when I went to school, we used pencils. We used lined paper. You don't do that. You don't write your notes down. You do everything online. I said, I can't do online anymore. Yes, I had a computer, and yes, I used it, and yes, I knew how to do it. But my hands are so badly damaged from surgery that I can't push in the keys any longer. And that was very hard. Everything you turn to is turn online, and I can't do anything online. I've given up my life and given it to somebody else, literally. My daughter handles everything for me. I'd be lost if I didn't have somebody here. I guess that's about as much as I can tell you, unless you have a question about me.
I would like you to share messages, perhaps starting with your grandchildren and then with your daughter. Things you've never shared with them that maybe you'd like to share now. And we can actually keep this part and have them not hear it, or they can hear it. But things that you've never told them, or things you'd like to tell them now.
What they know most about me is that I was born here, a very proud Jewish woman. And the fact that I was born on the day of Anne Frank, the first thing I did when I knew that Casey was able to read was to buy her the book on Anne Frank's story.
What came next?
I wanted her to know what a Holocaust was. I wanted my children to know what a Holocaust was, and the fact that I was a proud Jewish woman, born here in this country. I wanted her to know what anti-Semitism was, and that she would face it, and that my grandson would face it wherever they went. I wanted her to know that when you called a dirty Jew, that didn't mean that your socks were not changed. It meant that your religion was the wrong one. Those are things that I wanted them to know. I wanted them to be able to keep some form of Judaism. Remember when a Jewish holiday is. And if you can't remember, go somewhere and get yourself a Jewish calendar. Know when the beginning of a new year is. Know when the holiday of Hanukkah is. That you light a menorah. And I will leave you my menorah. I will leave you the menorah that I bought in Israel. A menorah that has the eight candles with fancy candles that are in them that you can even buy in the grocery store today. I wanted that to be part of your life. I wanted them to know how Jewish I was and how Jewish my parents were, and brought me up to respect that. I wanted them to know that I chose to study. I chose to study of my religion. I chose to study it. I chose to teach it. But that didn't mean that I would expect you to do it. I would expect you to remember who you are, that you were born Jewish, that is a noble religion with a tremendous biblical trait. I would want you to know that if I had been born maybe a little bit later or what have you, I would have been a rabbi. I would have been the first woman rabbi. Not to teach, not to be part of a congregation which urges people to bring in money or something. I would have been a teaching rabbi. And I came that close to be able to do it. Just a little bit too old in the wrong time. Life didn't treat me good enough for that. And that's what I'd like them to know, that I was the first woman to do so many things here. And I never realized it until someone told me when they were looking for someone to teach a class at a university. Somebody remembered my teaching. and called me. I had taught Dr. Fischler's children. Dr. Fischler, Abe Fischler, there was even of Southeastern University. There was an avenue that's named after him. I had taught his children years ago, and he remembered me. He remembered that, I don't know. Was I that good a teacher? I don't know. But I guess so. His kids remembered me, and they are grown, both attorneys, I think. I think he said he asked them who their favorite teacher was, and it was me. And he looked me up. Somewhere along the line, he said, come in for an interview, which I did. And I opened Southeast first. I was the first of the teachers to start the lifelong learning program. And I taught remarkable women. I didn't teach Jewish women. I taught remarkable women. And my daughter tells me all the time that I was probably one of those remarkable women. And I think I was. When I look back on it, I did what many people would not have done. I didn't go for the money. I didn't go for prestige of any kind. I just wanted people to think, and I wanted my children to know what it was that made me different. My mother didn't have that opportunity. Mama didn't go to school, but she went to night school to learn how to read and write English. And my father, after working all of his days in a tailor shop, went to high school at night to learn how to read and write. Well, they both learned how to read very quickly, but the writing part was hard. And to know that as difficult as it was, you go back to school and you learn to do something, and you be proud of what you do. And if you make $10, you take $1 and put it aside and give it to somebody who doesn't have it. That's what I taught them, I hope. You have to understand a value system, understand a life system, because nobody's going to be there to teach it to you afterwards. If you will remember that life is hard. It doesn't have to be, but that you give back a little bit of it to somebody else. When you give thanks for everything that we have. You give thanks for certain values that we have, things that will keep us going for the rest of our lives.
Thank you.
What else you want to know?
You did it perfectly.
I don't want to tell them to read the paper. Read. R-E-A-D. Read. Not on that little goddamn phone. Read. Book. B-O-O-K. Book. Read. That's what'll save you. I belong to 2 book clubs. I can't even see to read anymore, so I just have to let people tell it to me. Yes, I read with a magnifying glass. And if I have the patience of a lifetime, I can sit and I can go through a book. But I'm not going to be without a book. I still get a newspaper. I can't read it too well. I can't do it anymore. But words are what I was meant to do. And to be able to read and to be able to, I don't write anymore, I used to, and to teach and to know there's a world out there and you can help other people. Everything that you know can be a helping sign for somebody else. I could never just sit back. I have always envied all of these women who have learned to just play cards or bingo or do things like that and not think about other people. I have always given part of my life to others. That's what makes me me. I believe that I have done as much as I can, and that at this point in my life, I hope that I have given them stability. I hope that I have given them the crutch that will take them through the future. I hope that they will all hold hands and they will all dance the hora someday. Don't mourn me when I'm gone. You may talk about me, but you'll say a few good things and a few bad things. But when it comes to bury me, remember that I've paid for that grave, that I earned every inch of it, every bit of that soil that's there. Sing me a song, Maybe Frank Sinatra's song was probably the best thing to sing for me. I did it my way. I really did. I did it my way. And then there's a Leonard Cohen song. I don't know if you know Leonard Cohen's music from Toronto. Leonard Cohen's Hallelujah. Hallelujah. I did it my way. I really did. I did everything my way as long as I could. And I have never regretted 1 inch of it. I kept my house. I kept my children. I lived through a hell of a lot of shit and kept it all. But I did it my way. Not always good, but the best that I knew how to do. And the best that I did, whether I knew how to do it or I didn't. I learned to survive. I learned survival techniques of a woman living alone with very little money. Very little money. I learned to say I wasn't going to give in to anything. By hell, I did it my way. And that's how I'll go. And that's how I'll go out.
Thank you. Thank you so much for this.
Thank you.